Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Mortal Kombat 11 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now the game is currently running the auto configurator, which is just something that it needs to run to actually let you play the game for the most part, and it just determines what would be the best quality settings. Unfortunately, when we ran it, the auto configurator pretty much was just saying that it literally could not find a proper setting at the stock 15 watt TDP at the full 1080p resolution. So I pretty much just went in and actually adjusted all the settings myself to get it all to the minimum possible setting. So after configuring everything to the lowest possible settings, except for the textures, which I pretty much set to the high setting, I went about testing all of the different TDP settings to see if there was any way for us to actually try to squeeze out a playable experience out of this game. So testing out the built-in benchmark with the 15 watt TDP, you can see here that the game is very much slowing down and is just struggling in general to try to even play this at anywhere near a reasonable frame rate. I mean, the game is actually running pretty much at half speed since we're only getting half of the FPS, and in general it is not going to be a pleasant experience whatsoever. This is of course at the 15 watt stock TDP at 1080p resolution with the lowest in-game graphics settings, so this is just not going to be doable at all, and the game itself pretty much tells us this is not going to be doable. Now the 25 watt TDP is definitely getting us into some better FPS territory by far, and our 1% lows are looking significantly better, but in general you will see that the game is still running slower than what it's supposed to, and it really just comes down to the fact that the FPS that we're getting is just not going to be good enough. You're pretty much going to have to set this to a 30 FPS average, or rather a 30 FPS cap, so that you can actually have a locked 30 FPS average and the experience will be significantly better than this. In general though, the game is just telling you it's not doable, and unfortunately 30 watts also is not enough to salvage the experience here, where we're still dropping down into FPS that is going to make the game noticeably slow down. You can just see it in general. Things are struggling to keep up. It's just not going to be doable at these settings. It really is just a little too demanding for this chip at the full 1080p resolution. Now, of course, we can start to adjust the resolution to see if that will actually improve our overall performance. Now, dropping things down to 900p does improve the experience somewhat, specifically in the 1% lows, and in general, you'll see that the frame times are a lot smoother here, but you will still notice the slowdown in the game because we are dipping below 60 here. This is at the stock 15 watt TDP. So even at 900p, the stock TDP is just not giving us enough FPS here to make this fully playable. So if you're going to be playing at stock, I would really recommend just capping the FPS to 30 instead. Now at the 25 watt TDP, we start to actually get a noticeably better experience. You'll see that the frame times in general are a lot smoother. You'll see that the 1% lows are looking significantly better, and our averages are far more solid here. This is pretty much the beginning of where it actually starts to get reasonably playable. It's not amazing. It's even telling you it's at a pretty much medium performance level, but it is doable. And the 30 watt TDP actually just ends up increasing that lead even more, overall improving those 1% lows significantly and making the overall frame time charts look absolutely great here. This is pretty much going to be the best possible experience that you're going to be able to get at 900p, and overall it is finally getting into a territory where the performance is decent enough, though your 1% lows are still dropping below 60. That said though, dropping down to 720p and going back to the stock 15 watt TDP, you can see that the performance level that we're getting here is actually really decent here. We're finally able to get a reasonable level of performance at the stock 15 watt TDP. We just do have to drop the resolution down all the way to 720p, but it is giving us a decent level of performance now. That being said, raising the TDP to 25 watts does improve the experience overall at 720p here. You'll see that our 1% lows are looking really solid, though it's not hugely different compared to where we were at 900p. So while it is an improvement, it's nothing drastic, it's nothing major, but it is overall actually giving you the first high performance score that we've seen given out so far, though we have to sacrifice a lot in terms of resolution. Now, of course, going all the way up to the 30 watt TDP does improve the performance slightly, though at this point we're pretty much at the range where we want to be at. We have that 60 FPS average, we have 1% lows that are barely dipping even below that, and our frame times are looking ultra smooth here. So really this is the best possible experience that we've seen so far here. There is one more thing though. The game itself actually supports dynamic resolution scaling here. So with that enabled, you can see that at the stock 15 watt TDP at 1080p, we are getting a far better experience than what we were at just the stock setting at 1080p full resolution. So having the game auto adjust the resolution does improve the performance significantly here, though at the stock 15 watt TDP, it's not enough to salvage the experience. You're still going to get a low performance score here, and it's not going to be doable. That said, though, at the 25 watt TDP, the experience is completely different. At this point, it actually does become a far more playable experience, though you'll see that our FPS numbers still aren't exactly perfect, and you will see occasionally a little bit of slowdown as the game is being played because of the fact that the FPS being lower pretty much means that the in-game speed is reduced, but we do get a medium performance level. And at the 30 watt TDP, you'll see that overall the score that we get here is actually going to be very, very decent for what we're running at, considering that at the full 1080p resolution, the performance that we were getting was just going to be far too inconsistent to really do it at even any settings whatsoever. So having the dynamic resolution scaling is going to be useful, though you can't always just drop the resolution fully and just get maximum performance like that. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.